again, just thrilled to be joined by Susan Gale Perry. Susan, before we jump in, do you mind giving a little introduction, let the people know who you are?
Sure, Aaron. I'm Susan Gale Perry, and I'm the CEO of Childcare Aware of America.
And Susan, that's a great place to start. So, Childcare Aware of America. I know that in childcare circles, obviously a huge name, presence in all 50 states. But for folks who may be a little bit less initiated with the childcare advocacy world, what does Childcare Aware of America do? CCAOA for short. What do they do? Where can they be found? And what are the things that are sort of most pressing on your agenda here in 2024?
Absolutely. Well, Childcare Aware of America is a national nonprofit organization, and I'm going to talk about three things that we do primarily. The first is that we are a member organization of around 400 state and community organizations, also nonprofit themselves, around the country who really work in communities to help families find and pay for childcare and to build the supply of quality childcare by helping new programs get started, helping to train the childcare workforce in an ongoing way. And they also do a lot of work collecting data and analyzing data to best target resources to meet the community's childcare needs. Many of them also work with business partners who are looking for solutions to their childcare challenges with their employees. So our member organizations are a big part of who we serve. The second thing that we do is that we directly serve our nation's active duty military members through our military programs. We help military members find childcare and also pay for childcare around the country. And we also operate a respite childcare program for military families for children with special needs. And then thirdly, we do a lot of policy and advocacy. We're here in Washington, D.C., and research. So we try to put out practical research and sensible solutions to our nation's childcare challenges.
Okay, so just all the things. Just
all the things.
Yeah, if it's childcare related, CCAOA is there.
Yes.
So, Susan, to be CEO of such an organization, tell us a little bit about your background. I mean, obviously, you're passionate about childcare, you're knowledgeable about it, but in just a couple words or a couple sentences, I should say, how did you come upon CCAOA, and where do you see the top priorities for childcare in the next 6 to 12 months?
Absolutely. So me personally, I actually started my career in a local childcare resource and referral organization. I also have done work at the state level. I was the Chief Deputy Secretary at the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, where childcare was part of my portfolio, but it was one part of all of our suite of human services. And I have worked at Childcare Aware of America in the past and have returned to the organization as its CEO. So most of my career has been in early childhood systems work and policy work. And when I think forward about our greatest childcare challenges, I think as a nation, we collectively need to come to terms with how are we going to solve the dilemma that we've had for some time, which is we just have an insufficient supply of quality childcare to meet the needs of families. And much of that care is really unaffordable for most American families. We know that the average cost of childcare is upwards of $12,000 a year for just one child in childcare, while at the same time, our childcare workforce only earns on average $14 an hour. So we just really have a mismatch. The dollars and cents don't work. And I think together we collectively have a lot of opportunity to find ways to close that gap and make sure every family has childcare that meets the needs for their children and themselves and their ability to be in the workforce.
And Susan, based on the portfolio of CCAOA, it's clear that childcare is very multifaceted. There are several different things that you need to pay attention to at the same time. You can't just look at supply. You can't just look at the childcare workforce. You can't just look at facilities. You kind of have to look at everything all at once, right? And so I would love to hear from your perspective, With childcare, it's a national issue, oftentimes with local solutions. And where do you see the business community or individual employers really fitting into some of these childcare innovations and solutions to healthcare challenges?
I am so excited by what I have been seeing, particularly recently, but really for always in the business community. So, the business community has a huge role to play in childcare. First, many of them are working hard to connect with their community childcare resource organization and help turn what is really a patchwork of resources for families into a system that works for them and helps meet their employees' childcare needs. And some of them are doing that directly by providing support to families to help them pay for childcare or providing them with referrals to child care programs, and they can work with their state and local child care resource organizations to do that. But I'm also really excited about how much businesses and chambers across the country are stepping up to recognize that child care is an issue for their employees and an issue in their communities, and something that we all have a role in solving together with families who are their children's first and best teachers.
And Susan, do you have, I hesitate to say a favorite, but when we talk about that collaboration with employers and the childcare community, either at a local level or maybe a state initiative, but are there any examples or best practices that you can think of that you really point to and think that is progress? That's something that more people should be looking at.
Yeah, there are a couple of things that have been emerging lately that I'm really excited about, and I think might even be some of your guests coming up. But so one of them is what is called a tri-share model. And this is a model where businesses and public funding, usually at the state level, and families are all paying a third of the cost of childcare. So they're working together to set up something called the tri-share model. And it's really a great way for everybody to have a stake in meeting the needs of employees' childcare needs. Another, and I've seen that in Michigan, and it's starting up in North Carolina. Another one that I think is just tremendous, and this is where, we all just have to get started on solving this problem. Sometimes I think we spend a little bit too much time admiring the problem and worrying about what's broken and how to fix it. And we really need to be focused on what's possible and how do we make things happen. An example of that is in Iowa, where I have seen an organization bring together a group of businesses who are all putting in resources to help cover the cost of the childcare workforce. They know that there's no childcare without childcare teachers. And so they're stepping up and saying, yeah, we're willing to make an ongoing investment directly into the pay of the childcare workforce. And we can collaborate together as businesses to do that. And we've also seen then some state dollars being kicked in for that as well. So those are a couple examples of where I'm really excited. But I will also say, in terms of using the voice of business, I've seen really states across the country. Right now, I'm thinking about Nebraska and North Carolina, for example, that where the chambers have really stepped up and really brought a lot of attention to the needs for their employees' childcare, and really helped, I think, push forward some great new state investment in childcare.
And Susan, you mentioned that, and this feels fairly obvious, but is worth repeating, anytime we're given the opportunity, but that without childcare providers, without early childhood educators, there is no childcare. And we spent a lot of time talking about the ramifications of not having childcare. And so I would say generally, but also specifically in terms of how the business community can be a value add. But what are some ways in which we can uplift the childcare profession to really make sure that everyone knows how essential it is and how I have a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, right? And so I feel like every day I see how important it is that we have a qualified childcare workforce. It's not just go play with some toys. It's like, what kind of leaps need to be made at what ages? If those leaps aren't being made, what sort of interventions do we need? And so it's a very skilled and technical profession. How do we serve as messengers to ensure that people understand that not only is it important that we have someplace to take our kids while we work, but it's important that those kids have the quality support that they need, and that quality support comes from a professional workforce.
I love that you asked that question, and I love that you as a parent are recognizing that these are really hard jobs and they do take a lot of skill. And I think the business community knows better than most communities how important workforce development is, and really having training and credentialing systems. I've seen businesses really advocate for that and make some investments in that for the childcare workforce. And also, again, using that business voice to say, hey, we recognize that the strength of childcare is really dependent on that childcare workforce, and we want to see more of that. And you talked about this, Aaron, just a minute ago, that you can't just invest on the demand side that's helping parents pay for childcare. You also have to make those investments on the supply side, which is really thinking about how do we do workforce development with childcare teachers? How do we make sure that they have competitive wages and benefits? So businesses can play a big role in that, and I think are stepping up to do that in communities around the country.
Susan, we're so appreciative of your time. Before we depart, are there any specific resources or events or just anything currently at CCAOA's website, or anything upcoming that you want to flag for folks?
Well, I think the main thing I want to say is that folks can visit childcareaware.org to really get connected to their state and local childcare resource organizations. They can really be the one-stop shop for businesses and for families looking for help with meeting their childcare needs. So I would encourage folks to come to our website and find their state and local childcare resource organization and start there, because that's their job. Their job is to make it easier for businesses and for families. We don't expect people to go into a restaurant and try to figure out whether it's healthy and safe and clean. We have a rating system for that, and childcare resource organizations can really be that place that businesses and families can go to really get all of their childcare needs met.
Well, that's anyone who's heard me talk about childcare, especially if my audience are business leaders, employers. I always say, childcare is just objectively kind of overwhelming. It is complex. But if you are, at a chamber, an employer, and you want to contribute to the solution, you don't necessarily need to become a childcare expert.
Absolutely.
You just need to know one. And CCAOA are those experts. And so I encourage any employers, any business leaders, any chambers of commerce who are listening to this, if you don't know where to start at CCAOA.
Thanks, Aaron. It's great talking to you.
Awesome. Thank you again for your time, Susan, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay.